Rain fell hard against the highway, blurring the glow of streetlights into streaks of gold and gray. Amelia Brooks gripped the steering wheel tighter, her car sputtering as if gasping for one last breath. The sound came suddenly, a violent cough from the engine, a flicker from the dashboard, and then silence. The car rolled to a stop on the side of the road, steam rising from under the hood. She leaned back, pressing a hand to her temple. Of all nights, it had to be tonight. She had just left an investor dinner that determined the next chapter of her company's expansion. Billion-dollar deals, headlines, prestige, all of it. Yet here she was, stranded in the pouring rain like the world's cruelest reminder that money didn't fix everything. Her phone blinked red. 1% battery. Perfect. She stepped out into the rain, heels slipping against the wet asphalt, and popped the hood. Steam burst upward, drenching her face in the sharp scent of oil and failure. She stared at the mess of wires and metal, pretending for 5 seconds that she knew what to do. Then she laughed quietly to herself. A CEO stranded by her own engine. How poetic. A truck's headlights appeared in the distance, slowing as it approached. She tensed at first, years of city instincts warning her, but when the truck pulled up, she saw a familiar name painted on the side. Coleman's Auto Repair. Her breath caught. She hadn't seen that name in over a decade. The door opened, and a man stepped out, pulling his jacket over his head. His hair was shorter now, darker from the rain, but she'd have known that walk anywhere. Confident, steady, unhurried. He reached her car, squinting through the downpour. "Need a hand, ma'am?" For a moment, neither of them moved. Then his voice faltered. "Amelia?" Her lips parted, but no words came. "Ethan," she whispered. He blinked, as if making sure it was real. "It's been a long time." 10 years, she said softly. "I didn't think you'd still be here." He gave a faint smile. "You always said I wasn't built for city lights." The rain came down harder, soaking them both. He stepped forward and leaned over the hood, his movements efficient. "Looks like your radiator's cracked," he said after a moment. "She's not going anywhere tonight." She sighed. "Great. Any chance you can fix her?" He glanced at her with the same wry humor she remembered. "With the right tools. But not here. I can tow it to my shop." She hesitated. "You still run your own place?" "Barely," he said, shrugging. "Keeps food on the table." When she didn't respond, he added, "You can wait at the shop while I take a look. It's warm there." She hesitated, torn between pride and practicality, then nodded. "All right." As he hooked up her car, she stood under the edge of his truck's awning, watching him work. The years had changed him, broader shoulders, lines near his eyes, but his steadiness hadn't faded. It was the same quiet patience she had fallen for back when they were young, before she'd left him behind to chase ambition in a city that never stopped taking. When they reached his shop, the clock above the garage door read 11:42 p.m. He opened the door for her. Inside smelled of coffee, oil, and warmth. "Still a night owl," she said. He chuckled softly. "Parenthood will do that to you." Her head turned. "Parenthood." He nodded toward the small couch in the corner, where a child's blanket and a few toys lay scattered. "My son, Lucas. He's 9. Sleeps in the back when I work late." Something in her chest tightened. "You're a single dad?" He nodded. His mom left when he was 2. Guess she didn't like small-town life either. She looked down, guilt pricking at her. "Ethan, He wiped his hands on a rag. "You don't have to say it. We were young. You had dreams bigger than this place." "I thought success would make the leaving easier," she said quietly. "It didn't." He leaned against the counter, studying her. "Funny. I used to think love would make the staying easier. It didn't either." Silence filled the room, broken only by the hum of rain on the tin roof. "Do you need to call someone?" he asked finally. She glanced at her phone. "Dead. No one's waiting for me tonight." Something in his expression softened, and without a word, he poured her a cup of coffee. "Then stay until the storm passes." She wrapped her hands around the mug, the warmth grounding her. "You always did know how to make things feel less broken." He smiled faintly. "Only machines. People are harder." She met his gaze. "Some people still try." The air between them shifted, old memories stirring, familiar and dangerous. As the storm raged outside, she found herself staring at the small photo taped to the wall above his desk, a boy with Ethan's eyes, holding a fishing rod and grinning wide. It was a life built from quiet resilience, something she had traded for skyscrapers and schedules. When she looked back at Ethan, He was watching her too, the same question in his eyes that neither had ever answered. Outside, thunder rolled, but inside the small garage, time seemed to pause. For the first time in years, Amelia felt something she thought she had lost forever. Peace, simple and undeserved. And she realized then that maybe the storm hadn't stranded her by accident at all. The storm carried on through the night, wind battering the garage doors as rain poured in relentless waves. The small heater in the corner hummed softly, filling the silence between them. Amelia sat at Ethan's worn wooden desk, her fingers tracing faint carvings in the surface. Letters, initials, small reminders of a life that had been lived slowly, deliberately. Ethan was bent under the hood of her car again, sleeves rolled up, grease darkening his hands. Every few minutes, he'd glance up at her like he was still convincing himself she was real. She caught him once and smiled faintly. "You still look at engines like they're people you can talk back to." He smirked. "Engines make more sense than people. You give them what they need, they give something back. They don't leave." Her smile faltered. "That's not fair." He stood up, wiping his hands on a rag. "Maybe not, but it's true." She met his eyes. "I didn't leave to hurt you, Ethan. I left because I thought I had to. I thought staying meant wasting potential." He tossed the rag aside. "And what about happiness? You used to say that success would mean nothing if you didn't have someone to share it with." Her chest tightened. "You remember that?" "I remember everything," he said quietly. She looked away, blinking hard. "Maybe that's my curse. I remember too much. Every moment I thought I was moving forward, I kept looking back." Ethan poured himself a cup of coffee, then poured another for her and placed it on the desk. "So why come back? You could have sent someone else to inspect the new branch you're opening here. CEOs don't handle small-town expansions themselves." She hesitated. "I didn't plan to stop here. My car decided for me." He raised an eyebrow. "So fate still has a sense of humor." She laughed softly. "You think this is fate?" He leaned against the counter, folding his arms. "You showing up at my garage in the middle of a storm after 10 years? Yeah, that feels like something more than coincidence." The wind rattled the windows, and she stared at her reflection in the glass. The CEO mask stripped away, just a woman sitting across from the man she'd once left behind. "Lucas must be lucky," she said softly. "He's got you." Ethan smiled faintly. "He keeps me grounded. Gives me a reason to try again every morning." There was pride in his voice, but underneath it, a quiet loneliness she recognized too well. "Does he know about me?" she asked suddenly. He blinked. "About you? I mean that I existed. That once there was someone who made his father smile before life got too complicated." He chuckled softly. "I don't tell him much about the past. I figured some memories should stay untouched. But I did tell him that once, a girl came into my life who made everything feel possible, even when it wasn't." Her throat ached. "You said that?" He nodded. "I tell him that love doesn't always end in forever. Sometimes it just ends in lessons." "And what lesson was I?" "That sometimes the right person comes at the wrong time," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The words hit her harder than she expected. She stood, crossing to the workbench, pretending to examine the tools just to hide her trembling hands. "You built a life here, Ethan. A good one. I can see that." "I tried," he said simply. "But some nights, when the shop's quiet, I still wonder what we could have been." She turned slowly to face him. "You think we could have made it?" He studied her for a long moment, eyes searching hers. "If you'd stayed?" "Yeah. I think we could have built something stronger than both of us ever knew how to handle." Lightning flashed outside, lighting the room in brief white brilliance, and when the thunder rolled after it, she flinched slightly. He noticed and smiled softly. "You always hated storms. And you always liked fixing them," she said. He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell the faint trace of rain and oil on his jacket. "Not every storm can be fixed, Amelia." "Maybe not," she whispered. "But some can be survived." For a moment, neither moved. The space between them pulsed with all the words left unsaid. Then, from the back room, a small voice called out sleepily, "Dad." Ethan turned instantly, his face softening. "Yeah, buddy? I'm here." A small boy with messy brown hair appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. When he spotted Amelia, he blinked curiously. "Who's that?" Ethan smiled. "This is an old friend of mine, Lucas. Her car broke down, so she's staying until the storm passes." Lucas grinned sleepily. "You fix everything, Dad." Amelia smiled, warmth spreading through her chest. Looks like you inherited his faith. Lucas giggled. He says that when something's broken, you just have to take your time. Right, Dad? Ethan tousled his son's hair. That's right. As Lucas went back to bed, Amelia felt her heart twisting again. Part awe, part ache, part something she hadn't felt in years. Watching Ethan with his son, seeing the quiet strength in his eyes, she realized he hadn't just survived their goodbye. He'd grown into everything she once wished for him to be. And for the first time in a long while, she wondered if it wasn't too late to start over. The storm outside began to fade, replaced by a soft drizzle tapping against the roof. She looked at Ethan, who was wiping his hands again, pretending not to notice her staring. Ethan, she said quietly. Yeah. Do you still believe in fixing what's broken? He met her gaze, his expression unreadable. Depends what it is. She took a step closer, her voice barely a whisper. What if it's us? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at her the way he had 10 years ago, when dreams were still young and love felt like something simple. Then, finally, he smiled, a quiet, tired, genuine smile. Then maybe, he said softly, it's time to try. Morning came slow and pale, dripping gold through the windows of the small repair shop. The storm had passed, leaving the air sharp and clean. Amelia woke on the old couch near the front, a blanket draped over her shoulders that she didn't remember having. The smell of coffee filled the room, and for the first time in years, the quiet didn't feel heavy. Ethan stood by the counter, pouring a second mug before she could sit up. You still take it black? He asked without looking at her. She smiled faintly. You remember everything, don't you? He handed her the cup. Just the important things. They sat across from each other, the silence gentle this time. Lucas' laughter drifted from the back room, where he was building a tower of bolts and washers, humming to himself. The sound made Amelia smile. He's incredible, Ethan. You've done a good job. He shrugged. He made it easy. I just learned as I went. Her eyes softened. You always had that in you. The patience, the steadiness. I just didn't see it then. You saw it, he said quietly. You just thought you needed something faster. She looked down, guilt flickering across her face. You're right. I thought slowing down meant falling behind. I chased something that was never meant to love me back. He leaned back, crossing his arms. And did it at least give you what you wanted? She let out a long breath. It gave me everything except peace. They sat like that for a while, letting the sound of the rain-damp street fill the space. Then Ethan spoke again, voice careful. You could stay for breakfast. Lucas would love the company. Amelia hesitated. You don't have to do that. I've already taken up too much of your night. He smiled. We've got pancakes and exactly one chair that doesn't squeak. I'd call that destiny. She laughed despite herself, the sound light and surprised. You still know how to make bad days better. And you still roll your eyes when you try not to smile, he said. She did exactly that, and he chuckled quietly. Lucas came running in, holding up a small drawing made with pencil and grease smudges. Look, it's all of us. Amelia blinked. All of us. He nodded. Me, Dad, and you. You helped last night too, right? That makes you part of the team. Ethan laughed softly. You're quick to recruit, kid. Amelia took the paper from Lucas' hand, her throat tight. The drawing was simple, 3 stick figures standing under a big blue sky, her hair drawn with too many curls, Ethan's grin stretching too wide. Between them stood Lucas, holding both their hands. She swallowed hard. It's perfect. Lucas grinned. You can have it. Daddy says when something makes you happy, you should share it. Her smile wavered, eyes glistening. He's a wise man. When Ethan looked at her, something unspoken passed between them, an understanding that the years apart hadn't erased everything, that some things waited quietly until the right moment to return. After breakfast, she stood near her car while he finished tightening the last bolt. She's good as new, he said, tapping the hood. At least until the next storm. She watched him for a long time. You really rebuilt everything, didn't you? This shop, your life, your heart. He shrugged, giving her that half smile she used to tease him for. You'd be surprised what you can rebuild when there's someone depending on you. And if someone came back, not to depend on you, but to try again? He looked at her for a moment that felt longer than the years they'd lost. Then I'd tell her to take it slow this time. No running, no promises, just seeing where it goes. She smiled softly. You'd still trust her after all that? He met her gaze, steady and sure. If I didn't, I wouldn't have fixed her car. Her laugh came out shaky. You always were stubborn. Maybe, he said, but I've learned that some broken things are worth the effort. As she opened the car door, Lucas ran up, waving. Bye, Amelia. You'll come back, right? She bent down, hugging him. I'll try, partner. He grinned. Dad says trying's half the job. Ethan smiled from the porch, arms crossed, watching them. When she stood, their eyes met one last time. You still have my number, she said quietly. He nodded. You still have mine. She hesitated, then said, I might stop by when I'm in town again. I'll leave the light on, he replied. As she drove away, the rain clouds finally broke, letting sunlight spill across the road. In the mirror, she saw him standing there beside his son, hand resting on the old wooden railing, watching until her car disappeared over the hill. And for the first time in years, Amelia smiled without effort. She wasn't sure what waited ahead, but for once, she wasn't running from her past. She was driving toward it, toward the one man who had never stopped fixing what others would have thrown away. Because maybe, she thought, some loves don't end. They just wait for the right road back. 2 weeks passed before Amelia returned. She told herself it was business that brought her back to town. A quick inspection of the new branch her company was opening near the edge of the city. That was the story she rehearsed in her head, but the truth was simpler. She hadn't stopped thinking about him. The small garage tucked between the diner and the railway track had somehow rooted itself in her mind like a song she couldn't turn off. Every night before sleep, she'd see Ethan's quiet smile, hear Lucas' laughter, feel the warmth of a place that had nothing to do with power or ambition and everything to do with peace. The drive from her hotel to his shop felt shorter this time, maybe because she didn't feel lost anymore. When she pulled in, she saw Ethan crouched by an old pickup, grease on his hands, hair falling slightly over his forehead. Lucas sat nearby with a toy wrench, pretending to help. It was the most ordinary scene in the world, and yet her heart stilled as if it was something rare. Ethan noticed her first. Well, he said, wiping his hands, the city came back. She smiled. Did you miss me? He chuckled. Depends. You bringing more broken engines, or just good coffee? Both, she said, holding up 2 paper cups. I wasn't sure which one you'd need more. He took the cup from her, fingers brushing hers for a second too long. Still remember how I like it. 2 sugars, she said softly. I remember. They stood there, the morning air cool around them. Lucas ran up, waving excitedly. You came back. I told Dad you would. She knelt, smiling. You did, huh? Looks like you were right. He grinned, proud. I'm always right. Daddy says I got that from Mom. Something flickered in Ethan's eyes, a flash of pain quickly buried. Amelia looked at him, then gently changed the subject. So, how's business? He exhaled. Busy. I've been trying to expand, but it's hard when you've got 1 mechanic and a 9-year-old foreman. She laughed. Maybe you need an investor. He gave her a look. You offering CEO? Maybe, she teased. On one condition. And what's that? That I get to name the next branch. He raised an eyebrow. And what would you call it? Second chances. He smiled slowly. You always did know how to make a point. They spent the morning talking, laughing, sharing small stories that filled the spaces between what they weren't ready to say. Lucas dragged Amelia around the shop, showing her the tools and the secret snack drawer under the workbench. She listened, kneeling on the concrete floor in her designer suit without caring about the oil stains. When Ethan returned from a quick parts run, he paused in the doorway. There she was, his son teaching her how to tighten a bolt, both of them laughing like they'd done it forever. Something inside him shifted, an ache he didn't know he'd still been carrying. That night, after closing the shop, he walked her out to her car. The sun was setting, throwing gold across the parking lot. You didn't have to come all this way just to bring coffee, he said quietly. I didn't, she admitted. I came because I missed this. Missed you. He stared at her, caught off guard. Amelia. I know, she said quickly. I don't expect anything. I just needed to say it. He was silent for a long moment before speaking. You left chasing something you thought was bigger than this town. Bigger than me. And now you're here again. What? She met his eyes. Because I found everything I wanted, and none of it meant anything without what I left behind. He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the flecks of amber in his eyes. You always had a way with words. I'm not trying to win, she whispered. I'm trying to tell the truth. He studied her for a moment, then said softly, Truth is, I never stopped wondering about you. Even when it hurt to. Her voice trembled. Then maybe this time, we don't wonder. Maybe we just try. He smiled faintly. You always were stubborn. And you always liked it, she said, her tone lighter now. He laughed quietly, shaking his head. Yeah, maybe I still do. A cool wind swept through the lot. She turned toward her car, then stopped. Ethan, yeah. Do you ever think about what it would have been like if I'd stayed? He looked past her toward the glowing horizon. Every day. Then, softly, he added, but I'm starting to think maybe you had to go so we could meet again like this. Older, smarter, ready. She smiled, blinking back tears. I'd like that. As she opened the car door, Lucas' laughter echoed from inside the garage, still playing with his tools. Ethan watched her for a moment longer, then said quietly, You know, Amelia, the shop's always open. And some things don't need fixing, they just need time. She looked at him one last time, eyes warm. Then maybe I'll stop pretending I'm just passing through. He smiled, the kind that reached his eyes. I'd like that too. She drove away as the sun disappeared, the sky painted in deep orange. And though she didn't know when she'd see him next, for the first time in years, she didn't feel like the world's weight was on her shoulders. Somewhere behind her, in a small town she once outgrew, waited the only man who'd ever truly known her, the one who'd never stopped believing that broken things and broken hearts could always be rebuilt.